Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is Moving to Beer. This is Dan bringing us in, and we have a couple of awesome friends hanging out to play the role as co-hosts because, we have many of those.
Hola, me llamo Aaron. Soy un experto en español. Actually, if you speak Spanish as a listener, don't write in. I am not a Spanish expert at all. I'm Aaron. I'm our guitar case expert today.
There you are.
This is your arriving to the movie late because he had crises come up in his real life expert, Blake.
And this is Brian. I was in film school when this film was made.
Wow,
Nice.
so you probably know a lot about it, don't you?
I know some about it.
A bold assumption,
Okay.
Daniel. A bold assumption.
Yeah. Moving to Beer, we're talking about Desperado, 1995, Selma Hayek, and
Antonio Banderas.
Antonio. I don't.
Antonio.
Okay.
Antonio.
Yeah. Cinco de Mayo, happy Cinco de Mayo, all of the people in America, and which is a thing they don't celebrate in Mexico, which is kind of interesting. Any reason to drink.
I only drink in days that end with Y.
Everyone looks at me and like, really? I was like, yeah, no, give me a reason to drink.
It's a big holiday in Los Angeles and San Diego.
Yes. We knew we were going to watch this, and I happened to be pouring at the Nano Fest last weekend, which was at John's Marketplace in their parking lot in Southwest Portland. I walked in and I'm like, hey, we're going to watch this like crazy shoot 'em up movie. Basically, it's called the Pulp Fiction South of the Border because of the, it also happens to have the director of that film in it. As
Yeah, Robert Rodriguez is very much in a similar style and direction as Quentin Tarantino. Very big, bombastic.
It was Tarantino-esque. There's a lot of that sort of
But
style.
Tarantino, I would say, is definitely a mentor for Robert.
I think so.
Rodriguez.
Yeah.
They both kind of came of age within a couple years of each other, or were noticed, made their big break in Hollywood.
Yeah, Tarantino tends to send up the movies he grew up with, the 70s and that kind of exploitation style. And Rodriguez just celebrates the right word, Latino culture with lots of gun violence.
I thought you said celebrates violence.
Yeah.
I mean, but he always casts
Yeah.
heavily Latino cast, which is terrific. I love it.
So, like, after I got done with my 4-hour shift of pouring beers for people at this Nano Fest, I went in and I walked around, and they actually had a big section of Mexican import beers. And they had Superior, which I'd never had before, but I'd heard of, and Estrella. And Estrella is Jalisco. Estrella Jalisco, I think, is the full proper name. That one's the Pilsner, and the other one is just classified as an adjunct lager. So basically, both are made from corn, as most Mexican beers are. The Superior is in a smaller, like stubby bottle, and the Estrella is in a clear, which is one of the few beers I've ever seen here in the U.S. that's in a clear bottle because you want it to get light struck and get more funky. But we'll talk about that later. These were really good beers. I picked out something for Cinco de Mayo that I thought would go well with this very shoot 'em up movie because having seen the previews and heard about it and remembered a little bit about it, it seemed like a pretty amazing film, but it has a whole lot of really good actors and actresses in it.
Yeah. There's like Antonio Banderas, as mentioned, Selma Hayek,
Cheech Marin,
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi, who kind of does a little bit of the entry first, half hour or so. He's the one telling the story.
Yeah, the framing and the kind of intro monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Carlos Gomez is in it. I don't know what else he's been in, but he's pretty high build.
Yeah.
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo, who plays the, yes, he's going to die because he does in every film, bad guy who throws knives at people.
Yeah, Mexican gangster is his archetype. Also, Quentin Tarantino was in this film. He had
Mr. Foot himself.
Yeah, he was one of
Pickup
guy and got 3 bullets in the head, but we digress.
One of the factoids, the trivia that I read about this is that, despite having so many stars in the cast, owing to budget constraints, this whole film was done with exactly 2 stuntmen.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Because there was a lot of people hitting walls and flying through windows and
falling off buildings.
Yeah.
Backwards.
And like 2 guys to do all of that, that's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
And we spotted, we think the priest in the church was the same guy as the doctor who walked in. They didn't stretch the budget very far in getting actors. Yeah. Whatever. It happens. So Blake had mentioned that this is number 2 in a trilogy.
Oh, yeah. The first movie is El Mariachi, where it was not Banderas. It was a different actor playing a musician who got his guitar case mixed up with a gangster who hid guns in a guitar case. Mm-hmm. And then this one's Desperado, the sequel, where he comes back now with more budget and more action and gun violence. And the third is Once Upon a Time in Mexico, where Johnny Depp says the immortal line, "Are you a Mexican or a Mexicant?"
which is great.
Which is, it makes me crack up every time because he's also having a white guy say it.
Yeah. Well, there's some pretty memorable, but I mean, you can tell like super low budget because they shot this in like one sound stage. They didn't. Well, there was two areas they shot it in: at the compound with the big red wall surrounding the compound, and then in town. And in town, it's just like any town in Mexico, pretty much.
That bar is a real bar in Mexico, though.
Really?
Yeah. It's
I
The
wanna go
first one or
there.
the second one?
I wonder how many nerds do that.
maybe it's a pilgrimage site.
Well, there was a bunch of white people that kept walking into both, and you're just like, why are all these white people here?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a riff on Tijuana, TJ.
Yeah.
That feels like a thing white people do. We just kind of walk around everywhere.
Yeah, and pretend like we own the place.
Well, we do. So I put this flag here.
There you go.
Hey, and your beer tastes like piss. That's because we piss in it.
One of the memorable lines of the movie.
Very memorable. And there was also some really, the first opening part of the film had this big neon sign over the door that he walked out of the bar, which didn't make any sense, and I still don't quite get it. And it had this like, what does it said? It said, "The client is always wrong." And you're like, why does it say that? Is it like a stab at like the people who wouldn't give him money and make a film to start with?
I think
what?
it's kind of just setting the context, setting the culture of that particular bar, to just say like, hey, we got our cheap beer. We got, we're not here to cater to, to anything that's going to be too big of a lift.
But we could also really drill down in it because the first shot of that neon sign, all we saw was the word wrong.
Correct.
And it actually appeared in a story that someone was telling.
Oh my God, Brian, you're right. Yeah, and that story was not true.
The story was not true. It was part of the myth making of El Mariachi.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, they did. So the bad guy keeps saying he's real. He's real. He's gonna. He just shot up the bar and his like right hand man, and the other guys are like, no, it's a myth. The guy with the guitar case, it's a myth. We don't believe it. And it's like, no, he's really real. But then the plot spoil happens. The twist at the end.
Did not see that coming.
I didn't see it coming either. I thought it was the dude he was looking for was the boss of the guy that he was going after, and that still may be the case.
Potentially.
Because
The guitar case.
so the whole thing is he's going after the person who murdered while he was standing there next to her, his girlfriend, and then he was holding his hands up like, why'd you shoot her? And they shot him in the hand.
And then he couldn't play guitar as well
Correct.
anymore.
Yeah.
So that's why he picked up guns and he's like, I'm going to get vengeance. But the thing
Yeah,
is,
so it was basically a revenge plot.
Yeah.
As a standard. And let's bring up the point. This movie is very high on style and very low on substance.
Love it.
The plot is very straightforward and very basic.
It's like eating a bag
Like
of
the
foreign
sets.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like eating a bag of foreign potato chips. They're not doing anything for you, but they sure taste good.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was so predictable that like I'm literally saying the lines before 30 seconds or like seconds before they say them. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what they're going to say now because the plot and the dialogue is really thin.
Dan and I were trading off in that game. Yeah.
But it's a fun film to watch with friends, I think.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with style.
Not every movie has to be a heady dialogue about humanity and man's place in nature. Sometimes you just want to watch Antonio Banderas fire guns at an extreme close-up to hide how untrained everyone is with their guns.
Well,
if you want-
we looked at that. We examined that a little bit.
I was gonna say, if you want that sort of cartoony Tarantino, where the violence is like over the top by like not just a little bit, but like
lot.
3 steps.
Yes, please.
It has definitely that feel to it.
There were some amazing sound effects that was happening. Like, so they're on they're at the compound and like there's like fighting happening and like this whole Fight Club like little pin to prove your manliness. And
Join the family.
join the family. If you can beat the guy up, you can join the family. And it's literally like cartoonish. Poing, tong.
Yeah, it's
literally-
kind of black belt theater type sound effects with the punches and the kicks.
I love a good wata in a Bruce Lee movie.
It was hilarious.
Or that whoosh sound the fists make. Oh, yeah. But yeah, like how Tarantino pulls from that era of film. I think Brian was saying, like, Rodriguez is kind of the same way. He loves film. He's going to pull from what he knows. And he grew up with exploitation, that good, aging poorly exploitation films from the 70s.
like Shaft and
Yeah,
that
ooh,
ilk.
yeah.
yeah.
I think the music was interesting along this film as well. The sound editing and they matched, I think, the music pretty well. But like most of it was like English music and not Hispanic
Los
or Mexican.
Lobos, I think, did a lot of the soundtrack. But Antonio Banderas did all of his own guitar work
Oh, he
in
must
this
have
film, which
learned.
was, I mean,
That's really surprising because
Yeah.
they cut to the hands a lot. So I thought it was definitely a
hand
guitar
model.
double.
A hand in,
Yeah.
a hand in.
Yeah, a hand in.
hand and stand-ins.
A real musician playing the guitar.
Yeah, but I guess they said the budget was $7 million, and Antonio Banderas had an NPR interview at some point where he said like they cut a lot of corners on the budget. You know, there were some crane shots that they did where it's just like not with like a safety gear that they
Yeah.
would, and he said he would never do that again. But it's a movie like they justifiably, I think, they could be proud to have made it. It's a good film.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I think we all enjoyed it.
I enjoyed the RPG guitar case.
There was so there was at the end he called his buddies, like the Salma Hayek convinced him, well, you got to call your buddies because we're going to kill him. And his buddies show up, and one has these 2 guitar cases that have like automatic, like probably M60 caliber weapons in them.
Sure.
But the cool thing is the case had a little expend. Like you
Yeah,
don't
to
see where the
shoot
ammo,
out
like,
shells.
so the shells can fly out, and then the other one was literally like a rocket launcher, and it was this funny, like almost foot long but really skinny rocket. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not real. Is it?
Like a model rocket.
A model rocket.
Yeah.
It was like one of those water rockets that you'd fill it with water and you'd pump it full of pressure and then hit the thing. And
But it sure blew shit up.
It did. Well, it took 2 hits on the car because the car was bulletproof.
Well, like,
Well, you're not going to ride around in a Robert Rodriguez movie with a non-bulletproof car. I didn't realize that he called his buddies that they were also just set musician assassins. And now I'm thinking about that Donald Duck band, Three Caballeros. So I guess you're welcome for me not being here for that part to just keep referencing that over and over.
Yeah.
Speaking of not being here for that part, Selma Hayek brought her parents and her brother to the opening screening of this film.
Ooh,
And
titties and all.
And there is a sex scene between her and Antonio Banderas where she made her family wait in the lobby for the duration of it.
Oh, no.
That's adorable.
Which was fantastic. It makes me love Selmita even just a little bit more than I already did. But so you probably have gathered this is it's a fun movie. It's a great movie. I wouldn't recommend it for kids.
No.
Why?
I mean, unless you can just like
Well, let's
have them
talk
leave
about-
the room and fast forward to that part.
Let's
The
talk
rest of
about
it's
the
just like-
original NC-17 rating, Blake.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The MPAA wanted to hit it with the NC-17, and they had to cut a lot of the gun violence. Like, there's a scene towards the end where he's about to face off with the final boss, and it fades to black. Because Rodriguez just, instead of leaving in the chopped up, poorly slapdash together remaining scenes, he's like, let's just fade out. Like, it'll be better just to fade out and not have whatever's left after cutting for what the studio says we have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Which I admire him for.
And the question,
this is definitely an R-rated movie.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
R.
high body count anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
The way they did the blood squibs, instead of doing like exploding bags, they shot like blood out of the guns. Like they shot blood at people, which looked too realistic, and they had to cut a bunch of those, which is great because that means you're doing a good job. It's just you wouldn't be able to sell. No one can sell an NC-17 movie. It's meant to be like
death nail.
essentially just so provocative that it's an extra layer of security for people to watch it. It's impossible to sell. R is hard enough to sell these days.
Probably a lot of theaters wouldn't even run it.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
But some of the violence that was left in though was like not that realistic. Like Antonio, like his character was walking along a wall, having been stabbed in the arm. It's just
There's this giant trail of blood that was just dripping down.
Like a slug trail of blood along the wall.
And it like really
amazing.
big too. It's like, wow, man, you'd be dead if you lost that much
Yeah.
blood. In that
Pints and
time.
pints and pints.
I was like, what the heck?
It's D&D rules. You just lose a lot of blood and in your hit points. And when you get back up, it's just I'm pouring it right in.
Yeah.
But if that's that how much blood on the wall, how much is like filling up his suit? It's
Yeah.
like, man.
And he did get stabbed and shot a bunch, but he kept going. He's got that John Wick thing where it's like, I'm just going to get shot 50 times or in the neck, in the shoulder.
That's a
and they
big
get
80s
stabbed.
thing.
It's stabbed in both arms, stabbed in the back, stabbed in the leg by knives, throwing knives, which went in a couple inches.
It's this romantic ideal that love overcomes. He was so enamored,
Driven by the love and revenge.
by the love of this woman who was murdered, that he can overcome physical reality because his feelings and his emotion are just that powerful.
So John Wick did that for the dog.
No,
I'm gonna yes.
This is a
yes.
romance film.
I think he was a revenant, and he and he just couldn't be stopped until the mission of revenge was accomplished.
That's
There you go.
that's a theory I hadn't considered, Brian.
Thank you for sharing that theory. It's probably true too.
I think it's just Robert Rodriguez doesn't give a shit about realism.
There's probably a lot more to that than anything else, but
But then it could be some of the more realistic parts were removed for the rating issue we mentioned earlier.
hey, but the kid did get shot in the end, or got shrapnel or something. They didn't really show that happen, but they showed him. It's like he calls his friends in to help him out. They die on the street or get shot on the street, and he leaves them for the little kid he just like tried to teach how to play his guitar. And it's like,
And he met this
what?
kid like a week earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he's
like,
got these
what?
lifelong friends who are helping him through a violent scenario. And okay, they died in the street. Oh, but this 10-year-old I met that I was teaching how to play a few guitar chords.
who's a drug dealer kind of thing,
Like a mule, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, and he knew what he was doing too. He's like, no, I want my dad to just sit and watch TV. He doesn't have to do anything. It's great. I'm
Which
like, no, that's not right.
Admirable family values in a way. However,
If you say so.
well, it's a good impulse to make your family's life easier. But I would not suggest running drugs as the method to achieve that.
That's questionable.
That would have
at
been
best.
great if you told me that a month ago.
Yeah.
Blake, we'll talk later.
Dude, the hell we will. What are you wearing, a wire? Oh no.
Yeah,
No,
he
just
is.
ignore the guitar case in the corner.
Okay, yeah. What about that drum set?
So I don't know if we're gonna pivot to beers.
We can,
Nah, let's not talk about beers this episode.
as we do
Movie and a movie.
movie and a movie. So
So we also watched.
we on occasion have the opportunity to know what we're watching ahead of time. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, meaning I, was at one of the bigger bottle
The
shops.
Royal We.
The Royal We was at one of the bottle shops. And I was walking around and they had
I'm gonna say Dan is beer royalty. That
they-
flies. That's
they-
acceptable.
They had a bunch of different nationally produced and distributed crap, and then they had some that I had not recognized. The Australia I'd had before, and I wanted to get that again because I know it tastes good. But the Superior has actually been around since like 1896.
Really?
It's old. This recipe's been around a long time.
Cool.
Pre-Mexican Revolution.
Yes, I also knew that was correct. I'm not bad at history. Dan, real quick, you were saying one of these was made with corn.
So both of these are adjunct
both?
beers. So they're both made with corn.
Does-
typically.
Like, is corn similar to hops, where if you get it from a different region, it'll taste different? Okay, I didn't think so, but I was really curious because I know you can get like,
Well, corn is obviously different everywhere it's grown based on the
Right.
soil and stuff. It's going to taste a little different, but they use that as the sweetening agent instead of malt. It uses
okay.
corn. It may have a little bit of malt or wheat in it, but it's primarily going to be corn as the agent they use. That's why it tastes kind of like corn
very cool. Thank you.
a little bit. Both of these have a very light and not very hoppy bitter profile. The Australia, so the first one we had was the Australia Jalisco Cerveza Dorado, 4.5%. It's kind of pale. It's in a clear bottle, which I find totally amazing. And it's got the little logo star stamped on the glass. It actually looks really interesting. I found this once at Fred Meyer in Hollywood District, and I've never seen it since then. But they had it again at John's Marketplace. And I was very, very happy that they had it because I really wanted to get it again. Having had friends that had spent time in Mexico and said, yeah, that was one of the better beers they'd ever had there. I was
Nice.
like, we got to get back on that one. We started with that one. It's kind of crisp, has very light aftertaste versus the Superior has a lot of aftertaste. It kind of lingers. It's not bad. Thoughts on the first one?
I liked it. It was. I would describe it kind of lighter, crisper. It kind of if I were to actually be in Mexico, like I have, and the heat is something to account for. I'll say it that way. And that beer would be just so delicious it was delicious here, but it'd be really delicious on a hot day.
Yeah, so you wouldn't need to necessarily put a lime in it.
No, it goes very well with the movie. I would say, as someone who lived in Los Angeles for 20 years, I like my mass-produced Mexican beers, my Dos Equis and my
Coronas.
Coronas, etc. It was reminiscent of it. It was better.
Yeah.
But it felt very familiar. And it was great to go with an entertaining movie.
Definitely.
I abstain.
It's all good.
As Aaron said, it's refreshing.
It is. It's a refreshing.
It's not a heavy beer at all.
Yeah.
Right.
The second one that we had, Superior, which is classified just as an adjunct lager. Cerveceria, I'm not even going to try to say these words because they have like a whole bunch of letters that I don't know how to pronounce in a row. But this brewery was founded in 1896 in Mexico. And this is only like a 3.6% beer, and it's a small stubby glass or stubby bottle, which is really, and it's brown, so it's going to hold up to being in a light environment, whereas
Sunlight.
the Australia is in a clear bottle. And again, it's like they do that so it gets skunky. They do that purposely. Well, it's cheaper, and it's printed. I don't think it's actually a label. I think it's printed on the bottle directly. It feels like it.
Yes.
Whereas the Superior is just like a paper label, like cheap.
The Estrella actually is etched with the symbol of the brewery too.
Yeah,
Like
it's
they're-
pretty cool
So, Dan, why would you want it to get skunky?
because that's the purpose of the recipe. Ask that of any Heineken or any Grolsch or any Rolling Rock. Bottles that are green get more skunky because they're green, because it pulls in the kind of light that force that allows that bacteria that's still floating around in the beer to get more skunky. It's going to get light strunk. It's also going to heat up faster,
Right?
Because it's going to
So
direct
what
light.
will that do to the flavor?
It just makes it skunk flavored. So it
adds
horse
a layer,
piss.
adds complexity.
yeah.
or adds-
Well, yeah, it can. It also is going to
That's a
change
nice way
as
to
warms
say it.
up. No, that's an actual legit flavor for those styles of
adds
beer.
horse piss.
Horse piss.
I'm getting
Hey,
notes of horse piss.
your beer tastes like piss. No, that's because we pissed in it. Exactly. I mean, that's sort of the point.
Fine barnyard notes.
It is. There are barnyard notes.
I'm getting notes of feral cat and
Straw.
I'm gonna say I liked the
Pregnant
Estrella a
cow.
lot. Actually, between the two, I think I like that a little bit better. The Superior.
Has to be really cold. When it warms up, it just gets flat and
I
rounded.
was gonna say it didn't linger on the palate very long. It had a real quick finish. It felt like I was drinking it, and then it like almost immediately it showed itself out, so to speak.
But you mentioned it tasted kind of spicy.
Yeah.
On,
That
on
first-
the first sip.
Yeah,
It gets sticky. That's the terminology that you would use. So it kind of lingers on the back of the palate or on the tongue a little bit. I call it tongue coating, but you can also say it gets sticky, and that's unlike other things that get sticky and or are sticky immediately. This one,
Blake,
when you
tell us
first
some things that are sticky.
bourbon.
gack, boogers, stickers. I know it's a little easy.
whatever.
Car
Prob-
tires.
Probably sometimes
Car
aliens.
tires.
Well, if they're melted, sure.
Shoes,
Shoes if they're melted, sure.
gum.
Hot asphalt. Gum's gross. Don't ever chew
So-
gum. Gum's gross, guys. Don't chew it.
So I will say that
Back to the beer.
The price range,
Movie and a
on
beer and
these,
gum.
I was actually really surprised because these were about $1.40 a bottle for the Australia, and the Superior were, even though it's a smaller bottle and less alcohol, were $1.60 a bottle. I was like, what?
That's how they get you.
Yeah, but so like a 6-pack each was like $8.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can afford that.
That's a good
That's
price point.
reasonable. Yeah.
Especially since they were cold and not just pulled off the shelf, as we've learned in previous episodes not to do.
Shed a tear for Black Hole Sun.
I know, right? We've talked a
Why
bit
are we
about the
talking about
movie.
songwriting?
We've talked about the beers. Do we want to? Is there a favorite moment we want to mention?
I like the part of the movie I was there for, the gunfight at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What about Antonio Banderas falling off a roof and using his gunfire, firing upside down backwards to propel him to the roof next door?
I'm
across
sorry,
the alley.
what? That's amazing. I forgot that happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Carolina stitching up Antonio Banderas the first time and kind of enjoying the pain she's inflicting on
Right.
him
She pulls out this ginormous bullet
from his arm.
And she's
and
like got
laughs
the
the whole way, and she's
got the skin.
tearing
She's
off
like
skin.
flopping it around. And it's like it's like here goes the zombie.
NC-17.
Yeah, here goes the zombie film. It's like literally, it's like that's so not realistic. But yeah, I can see how they're doing it because it's like they want to gross you out.
And the best part is Antonio Banderas is like, well, why didn't you take me to a hospital? And she like literally holds up a textbook saying, well, I'm just reading how to do it right here.
Yeah, 'cause she owns a bookstore.
She also says I wouldn't send anyone there, and he carries this little kid that he loves,
The 10-year-old.
the 10-year-old, to the hospital at the
Because
end.
you know, she's not going to stitch up that wound.
Maybe the twist is that he hated that little kid and he wanted him to die in the hands of the hospital staff.
That way, it's the hospital's fault. Not
There you
his.
go.
See, my
And then-
favorite thing was when they brought the kid into the operating room. None of the nurses or doctors had their mask up,
Right.
and they're all just walking in. They didn't
This was
scrub up,
pre-COVID. Come on.
and then the doctor looks at Antonio's character and says, "Get out of the room." And it's like, you guys, I'm like, really? Okay, that's funny. To me, it was funny.
No, it was funny. It would have been better if he was like smoking a cigarette or something, or dipping, just spitting in a cup.
There was another scene where a wound was cauterized with a cigarette.
Yeah, he's like,
The most clean thing you could cauterize with a cigarette.
Yep.
Well,
yep.
you know, as long as it doesn't get infected.
That's where you care just a little bit, but not enough to actually go and do it the right
That's
way.
where you pretend to care.
But have I thanked you yet?
Oh, no.
Yes. Twice in the movie that happened. He keeps asking the
Was it 3
new
times?
girl. Oh, was it 3 times? Have
Rule
I
of-
have
rule
I
of
thanked
three.
you yet? Have I thanked you yet? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the call sign. We're going to make another third. Oh, it happens in threes. It always does. Mm-hmm. All right. Any other thoughts on this wonderful, wonderful film? I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a good watch. It wasn't terribly long. It was like, what, an hour 40, hour and a half?
It's like
40?
carbs. It's like satisfying while you're in the midst of it, but then afterwards it's like
It was fun.
it was fun. It was
Okay,
fun.
yeah.
And
But
it's good to watch with friends.
Yes.
I wouldn't
Yes.
watch this alone by myself.
agreed. Yeah.
And the beers went well. I think I would agree. I think the Australia went a little bit better than the Superior. The Superior was like a little heavier in the profile, but it lingered also, so it coated the tongue. So I was like, do I want that? Maybe, maybe not. But there's so many other cheap beers out there that you can get that are imported or made here in America that say they're imported.
What?
It's
If to try.
imported. It's imported from the truck to the grocery store.
Correct. It's called domestic import.
Don't call me domestic. I don't.
are
just
we
because I
gonna-
don't know what it means doesn't mean it's not an insult.
Are we gonna rename Estrella?
I'm calling it Desperado.
That's
I looked at the list, but I just would call it a Desperado because it's a really cool name for a beer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like 230.
That's part of why I just picked Desperado. I don't want to read through all those.
Yeah. So do we,
While
do-
you guys think about it, I'll say real quick, if you want to have just like a day drinking, just Robert Rodriguez trilogy, El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, collection of cheap Mexican beers, get some, not to be offensive, but nachos and just good snacky
Some
classic
burritos
Mexican-
with the friends.
Yeah.
There you go.
Lots of green sauce.
Is that traditional Cinco de Mayo?
I have no
celebration?
idea. I celebrate Cuatro de Cinco.
Cuatro de Cinco. And so, well, okay, does anyone actually know what Cinco de Mayo is and where it came from or any of that? Because I'm curious to know if anyone
It
actually
celebrates
knows.
a
That's
minor
the-
battle. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I thought it was the Independence Day for Mexico.
It is not.
No,
has
it
nothing to
is celebrates.
do-
It was a minor victory, in a war that doesn't even apply to the entirety of the Mexican nation at this point. Isn't really celebrated in Mexico itself,
No,
but
it-
the Latina diaspora.
It's when
in
all
the
of
United
Southern
States.
California gets drunk.
Yeah, so
The anniversary of Mexico's victory over the Second French Empire at the Battle of Puebla in 1862,
yeah,
led by General Ignacio Zaragoza.
Blake, you read up on this. I'm
I
glad
read
that-
literally from my phone.
I was giving you credit, like
Right
you'd studied
now.
this. Yeah,
No, what you see me holding it up here like
But
I'm
my-
doing a book report.
I'm not a historian of Mexican history, but my understanding is like it was a kind of a not a huge turning point in terms of the war. It wasn't a major battle, but it was something big enough to celebrate.
It sounds like it's more of a not moral victory, but just it's something for morale. 'Cause it
Mission
says here-
accomplished.
Yeah, it says here the victory of a smaller, poorly equipped Mexican force against the larger and better armed French army was a morale boost for the Mexicans. So it's kind of the Spartans 300 versus all of
Mesopotamia.
yes,
I-
like it.
I was
the-
gonna suggest
a David and Goliath kind of thing.
Persia.
Persia. Thank you.
You're Persian.
That's a great callback. I was going to say George Washington leading troops across the Delaware River.
There you go. Yeah,
But, yeah.
Same thing.
not a pivotal battle, but something that kind of rallied the troops.
Yeah,
as it were.
yeah.
All right. So if we're going to do this, so beer name rename game. So we do the official title is plot keyword beer name rename games. For those kids out there that haven't heard us do this yet, you go to IMDb, you look up whatever show or movie you're wanting to do this with. About halfway down the page, if you're looking at it on a browser, you'll find a little section that has these words that are circled. and it'll say, plot keywords.
You can also
sometimes.
just Google search plot keyword the movie.
Correct. And it'll take you to the page because there's sometimes a lot, and these are user submitted. So if you're our member or have signed up with IMDb, you can submit and then also rank them. Is this, relevant or not? And this movie has a lot. Like you said, there's
It's a cult classic. People love, and I guarantee you, Evil Dead's got like 300. minimum.
Evil Dead. Yeah, This says 222. We quickly scroll through the list and then figure out what beer we want to rename, and then how to rename it. And you can use the words in any combination.
I'm saying Desperado for whichever beer you guys want to pick.
All right.
I would absolutely drink a beer named Desperado.
Desperado. My vote is Tough Girl.
Ooh, that's
That's
good.
interesting.
I'm going to call it Pistolero.
Ooh, that's even better. All right, Dan, cap us off with the best one.
All right.
No
'Cause
pressure.
there's
No pressure,
absolutely
Dan.
None. I actually picked one out, and then I started scrolling through more, and I was like, let's just call it Neo-Western.
Neo-Western.
Nah.
Yeah.
No, I like that. That's good.
Either that or Poetic Justice.
Oh,
You can't get
Poetic
two.
Justice.
I would drink a bottle of Poetic Justice.
Hey, don't give him two. That's cheating. He said his one.
Get over it.
Our off missing co-host Randall gets that one. He wins.
He wins. He does.
Okay.
All right.
Congratulations to Randall on
Yes. You won it by proxy.
No, those are all phenomenal names.
Yeah.
I like them.
Again, we all really enjoyed the film. I think these beers went well with it. I think we're all thumbs up on it. If you have an opportunity to celebrate Cinco de Mayo, do it safely with your friends and family. Mm-hmm. Don't do stupid stuff outside in the bars and restaurants and things. Do it personal.
Don't get into a big gun war with a local crime boss.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't go shooting up your local bar. Even if the beer tastes like piss and they pissed in it.
Or if you do, get a bulletproof car. Actually, don't.
Just
awesome.
don't shoot up your bar.
Yes,
Yeah.
don't shoot up the bar. That's important. As always, the opinions expressed during the taping of this episode are those of the hosts. And, I want to thank everyone for hanging out and listening and enjoying this wonderful film and hearing about us rant about these beers a little bit. Find something fun to drink and enjoy your Cinco de Mayo.
Do make sure you
whatever.
hydrate, or you're going to dehydrate.
Or you will dehydrate. You'll. I don't know how to say that Espanol.
I refuse to try the accent. I am
Agua,
not-
por favor.
Agua, por favor.
Ooh.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Agua, por favor. So have a good one, everyone. Thanks for listening. This is Dan signing
This is Aaron. Feliz Cinco de Mayo.
Bang, bang, bang. This is Blake.
This is Brian. Vaya con carne.